On paper, there's nothing quite as appealing this side of Emma Stone and those eyes as a video game epic. The thought of being able to turn the cost of a new game into an investment of weeks or months of your free time is how most people define getting your money's worth. Yet, how often do gamers actually get the chance to finish these epic gaming experiences? I mean, the further you get away from the near unlimited leisure time of youth being ground down harder than the finest coffee by life, significant others, and children, the harder it becomes to even find the hours needed to beat the most substantial titles. You may start one of these daunting video games and even put a sizable dent in them, but sure enough, there will come a day when, like looking at my recent search history, enough is enough, and you have to go back to reality. Someday, you whisper, caressing the game's case, someday. But it never arrives. With this in mind, I'm Jules for WhatCulture.com, and here are 10 epic video games you probably never finished. Number 10. Fuel. The world of Fuel covers over 5,000 square miles. About the same area that could be filled with Adventure Time fanfiction porn, which sounds impressive, and it kind of is from a technical standpoint. But many that start playing this game soon find out that there is simply no need for a racing game to be this size. It's especially evident when you try to complete the game's largest courses, which take you from one end of the world to the other. But even shorter journeys are quick to make you yearn for faster means of travel. The game's outlandish size was just a gimmick to cover up a severe lack of actual things to do, and, in an ironic reference to its own name, soon runs out of gas. Number 9. Gothic 3. Gothic 3 boasted an in-game world that was not only impressive in sheer size, but was swelling at the corset with a variety of grand quests. Unfortunately for Gothic 3, it came out around the same time as Elder Scrolls Oblivion. You know, that game which done did all the things and done did them very, very well. Gamers comparing the two titles soon saw Gothic's large member shrivel like it was exposed to the cold. Gothic 3's sheer amount of content made it one hell of a time sink, but thanks to janky mechanics and in many ways inferior gameplay to the big brother that was Oblivion, the developers simply saw their player base drifting back to Tamriel. Number 8. Thief 2: The Metal Age. Disappointingly not a game about a petty crook stealing from the likes of Megadeth, Thief 2 is not only one of the most important and well-made stealth games of all time, it's also a game that's aged shockingly well. As such, many gamers find themselves still coming back to it today. The problem is, however, is likely many will never finish the game, with its trial and error gameplay, need of a good sense of direction, and extremely long play length for a game of this genre. Usually a game that rivals my own length is very welcome, but the hardcore stealth nature of Thief 2 means you're going to spend a lot of that time playing the waiting game, and if American gun control laws are anything to go by, Americans hate waiting. Number 7. Demon's Souls. If you're like many gamers that first discovered the Souls series after Dark Souls took over the world, then there's a good chance that you went back and played its forebearer, Demon's Souls. Demon's Souls. Demon's Souls. In doing so, there's a good chance that you never made it all the way through. There's a few reasons for this, but the biggest is that Demon's Souls, just gonna call it Demon's Souls for now, okay? But the biggest thing that Demon's Souls lacks is the lack of refinement that Dark Souls would later bring to the franchise. Put those pitchforks and sun spears down, boys, I'm one of you, but let's be honest, it's very rough around the edges. For those experiencing it for the first time, however, you're going to be met with a true test of your gaming mettle. Difficult bosses, lengthy levels with little to no respite, and a learning curve steeper than the challenges facing recent graduates in the current job market. Simply put, like engaging me in trial by sexual combat, not everyone is equipped to take on this experience. So best leave it to the purists. Number 6. Disgaea: Hour of Darkness. Disgaea is infamous for its deep character building system. One of its biggest features is the ability to take your characters to level 9,999, unlocking equipment and constant rollouts of abilities the entire time. That's impressive, but getting to that point is entirely another matter. While Disgaea is fun to play and sports a decent enough story, your primary motivation to continue comes from grinding, and more grinding. Even if you don't intend to reach the absurd levels the games will allow you to level up your character to, it's interesting to see how much this drive to build a character class is diminished when the rewards for doing so are spread thinner than my contempt for otherkin. Number 5. Dragon Warrior 7. For many gamers, the thought of a 100+ hour RPG is a dream come true. The kind of gaming epic you like to think about after that $60 8-hour tween-riddled shooter is said and done. Dragon Warrior 7, though, is clearly a case of being careful of what you wish for. While its triple-digit runtime is far from a ploy, the game itself serves as a harsh reminder that the reason most games aren't that long is because it's difficult to generate enough compelling content to cover that much gameplay ground. You really have to enjoy the very basic experience of playing a JRPG, as the story presented here is in no way able to span the entire game in an interesting way. Instead, you'll be relying on mini-games and character introductions for most of your entertainment. Number 4. Final Fantasy II. Do you ever notice how the second Final Fantasy game never seems to come up so much when the series is talked about? Well, there's a pretty good reason for that. Like most Final Fantasy games, Final Fantasy II offers a grand adventure for those wanting to explore it, but unlike most other Final Fantasy games, it's an adventure not really worth getting far into. Without the gameplay innovations and incredible stories of later Final Fantasy games, Final Fantasy II just feels a little bit too generic. Even worse, its leveling system is as broken as my family home life, leaving the state of gameplay a fractured, boring mess. Number 3. Chrono Cross. While the opinions on Chrono Cross tend to be somewhat mixed, the general consensus is that it's just not quite as good as Chrono Trigger. What brilliance this game does have, though, wasn't necessarily seen by everyone that actually played it. Chrono Cross takes the same type of time investment as going to medical school solely to deny somebody who bullied you when you were 5 medical care. And even longer to really showcase the depth that makes the combat system in higher levels much more enjoyable. I mean, Chrono Cross doesn't even really start to get interesting until around 20 hours in. Before that, the game devotes way too much time to the setup, and while the payoff is pretty great, asking players to sit through that much en route is a bit of a stretch. It's not crazy to call Chrono Cross one of the best RPGs of all time, but those that do tend to be crazy enough to sit through the frustratingly slow start to get to the better parts. Number 2. Xenogears. The first part of this grand PlayStation RPG helps secure its status as one of the absolute greatest RPGs of all time. Xenogears' incredible world, memorable characters, and compelling story make it almost impossible to put down, even if you're not usually a big RPG gamer. But then you get to Disc 2 of Xenogears, and things fall apart like a celebrity marriage. Allegedly rushed in its developmental cycle, nowhere is this more apparent than the game's second half. Once you pop in Disc 2, much of the actual gameplay is dropped in favour of a heavy dosage of unplayable cinematic story sequences. The story of Xenogears may be very good, but I wouldn't say that it's quite enough to justify what is essentially a 20-hour anime ending. The drastic shift in tone and style would be too much for many gamers to handle, even if they were invested in what came before. Number 1. The Elder Scrolls 3: Morrowind. Morrowind is one of the most important RPGs of all time. No, really, it is. It's a game that attracted millions of players upon its release with its impossibly large world, depth of content, and amusing character design system. A show of hands though, who's actually beaten it? Come on, be honest. Yeah, that's what I thought. Although beating Morrowind in the sense of doing everything it has to offer may be impossible, most players will never even see the end of the main story. Its navigation system is tedious and confusing, the combat borders on awful, come on, it actually really does, and the game progresses at a snail's pace. Things get a little better as your character becomes competent enough to start eliminating more common creatures without hassle, but Morrowind's issues make its already considerable 100+ uphill battle all that much more daunting. And that's the end of our list. Got any other games that, like my genitalia, were too big for you? Then drop us a message in the comments below. And if you want to get big and bad with me personally, then you can do so here and here. If you enjoyed the video, then like, share, and subscribe for more. I've been Jules for WhatCulture.com, and I'll see you soon.